From prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. You can catch new episodes throughout the day at Creature Guide Live on Rumble and YouTube. Now, let's get into the news of the day, starting off with an article by 9news.com. Cougar makes 1,000-mile trek from Utah to Colorado. Well, this is interesting. I wouldn't say that this distance is necessarily surprising for cougars or pumas, but if it's like in a short period of time, then this is a rare incident. The cougar averaged 6 miles a day on her voyage, but traveled more than 20 miles on some days. Hmm. Well, this sounds like it might have been continuous. So if that's the case, it's actually quite remarkable. So some collared cougar. Doesn't say a specific name. There's a number of cougars, not just pumas in general, but a variety of big cats, other herbivores that have different numbers. Like there's the famous P22 from California. He lived not far from the interior of Los Angeles. He used to inhabit these small parks that consisted of like where the Hollywood sign is. Scientists in Utah have tracked a cougar's remarkable 1,000-mile journey from the Utah mountains all the way to eastern Colorado. Wildlife biologist Morgan Hinton wrote on the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources blog that they began placing GPS tracking collars on more than 60 adult cougars within the state back in 2018. Wow, probably going to get a lot of data from those individuals, not just on their movements, but possibly a bit of what they're eating, what's their reproductive success. The tracking collars provide biologists with valuable data on cougars, including feeding behavior, reproduction, survival, and cause-specific mortality and movement. Yeah, it is quite a shock when all of a sudden one of the radio-collared individuals turns up dead, and um, it's just quite well. What's interesting about when that occurs is that just the question is, how did it die? And aside from even things like, let's say there was a bear that killed it, maybe a pack of wolves, another cougar, human. Some instances it could be disease related, starvation, or it possibly caught a virus. There's a variety of possibilities. Scientists have documented some incredible movements of cougars in Utah, Huntington wrote, but one cougar in particular impressed biologists by traveling a little more than 1,000 miles in 165 days. Whoa, okay, well, that's interesting. Doesn't look like this individual. There are certain cougars that have pretty large home ranges, but this doesn't seem to be some sort of a well, okay, it said from Utah to Colorado, right? Um, that's yeah, it's definitely not sticking to a certain home range. I believe there's somewhere between 4 to 5,000 cougars within Utah. So they're more numerous than the black bears in the state, which is somewhere around 3,000 black bears in Utah. It's one of the longest journeys ever recorded for a GPS tracked cougar, Hinton wrote. Named F66. Okay, there's her name. The female cougar's trek began on May 30th, 2022. Oh, okay. So This is interesting. So this took place back then. So she's around okay, we don't know, how old she is at the moment. Just a few months after she was captured and collared in the Wasatch Mountains. So the Uintah Wasatch Mountains actually consists of the northeastern part of the well, technically, you just say directly like the eastern part of the Panhandle of Utah, and then they actually moved towards the rest of northeastern Utah. So for the state, it's actually quite a large mountain range. There are different elevations of obtaining more than 11,000 feet. It's one of the okay, she traveled through 3 states. Oh, she did? Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado. Interesting. I wonder what occurred. Um, some instances where, many might assume that she just wanted to explore and travel new places. She was listening to Phil Collins too much and just, thinking, she needs to, uh
She went on walkabout.
I was just thinking of there's something in Brother Bear. Um, anyway, crossed busy highways along the way, including Interstate 80, I-25, I-70. Sheesh. Yeah, these are major highways, especially going through, central Utah and Colorado. Wait a second. This said 80? I think 80 goes into possibly Wyoming. What? Hold on a second. This is talking about highways in, like, a quite a far proximity from each other. What? And Highway 40 during her 5-month voyage. What was she doing? Now, there was that incident from, like, with a cougar venturing from, South Dakota to Connecticut years back, so you could say this isn't the craziest cougar, but she's one of them. Um, what's remarkable is that she crossed all of them and survived. That's extremely remarkable. I will say, though, even, by experience, quite a bit of elk that didn't make it. But for the most part, elk tend to also survive these different, highway crossings. Also, more wildlife crossings have been installed in different states, especially over in the western lower 48, and, that's helped with the different migrations. It's also helped with preventing them from all of a sudden no longer migrating or taking just much riskier um, migration routes. At one point, Titan wrote, the 2-year-old swam at least a quarter mile across the Flaming Gorge Reservoir in Wyoming before continuing south. Wow, Flaming Gorge. Yeah, that's not a small reservoir. Gosh, where's oh yeah, okay, so it's in southern Wyoming. It's just north of the Ashley National Forest in northeastern Utah. So technically southeast of the panhandle of Utah, which is much shorter in length compared to the panhandle of Idaho or Texas, but technically it's the widest compared to any state size. Any of like, compared to Texas or, um, Idaho panhandle. Anyway, um, okay. Well, what do we have here? Was it gonna show us no way, it's gonna show us the route. Okay. So she started near Provo. She left, so she's going towards this is the Uintah Wasatch area. In fact, all of this region. But she made it past Evanston, a small town in southwestern Wyoming. So it looks like she didn't quite reach like the Cokeville area, but close here. So northwest of Rock Springs. There's a mule deer migration that takes place over here. Okay, this is Flaming Gorge Reservoir. So this is where she crossed back into the Uintah Mountains. So apparently rodeo wasn't her thing. And she went back. So she stayed in this region. This is a very arid part of Utah and this eastern region. Then she went down towards Moab, I think. There's Moab further. Yeah, this region. And then she crossed towards the Grand Junction. Well, Grand Junction is actually further south. But the ecosystems over here are fairly similar to where that town's located. Then she made it into different national forests of the Rockies of Colorado. So I think she just couldn't handle. Um, oh, yeah, there must have been something traumatic that occurred for her to make this type of a trek. I think because usually, cougars, especially the females, they won't venture too far. Same with many cats from especially their mothers. But in this instance, I don't know. We don't know also how old this individual is. So she actually stayed on the like Rocky Mountain front edge of Colorado. Just okay, then she crossed the highway, made it into eastern Colorado, decided to stay in close proximity of the highway, whether or not she was going to go back to the mountain range, and she went back to the plains. Interesting. So apparently the mule deer herds, possibly pronghorn, in this region, she was completely fine with. And so this was from May to what, November 14th of 2022. No, I don't know, somebody said it was starting February. No. Wow. Hmm. Yeah, that would make more sense. 5 months. That's quite astounding. F-66 averaged 6 miles a day, but traveled more than 20 miles on Sundays, Huntington wrote. After making it over the Rocky Mountains, she continued on and ended up crossing 75% of the state of Colorado before her death. Oh, on November 13th, 2022. A biologist and wildlife veterinarian determined that she had been killed by another cougar. Oh, find that other cougar and take it out. Wildlife biologists call fifth F-66 journey a dispersal event rather than a migration event because it was a one-time movement away from her home range. It's a behavior exhibited by a number of cougars, according to Heighton. They're most common young animals, but they are seen in adults sometimes as well. There's no telling what motivated F-66 to take on such a voyage, but Huntington wrote the greatest drivers of dispersal are often resource availability and avoidance of inbreeding. Mm, good. I mean, like, especially towards the, yeah, she didn't want to inbreed, but I don't know whether or not Utah has apparently a inbred population of cougars. Heighton wrote biologists are able to use GPS tracking data to identify important movement corridors for cougars and identify how movement is influenced by age and sex. That information is crucial to understanding population dynamics and improving management strategies for cougars in Utah and surrounding states. So, was there? Oh, that is sad. But something also didn't make sense when she reached this area. I'm like, I would think there would be plentiful there is some plentiful, um, habitat within the Rocky Mountains for, F-66 to thrive in, like, even access to mates, but another cougar killed her. It's just, that's quite shocking, but at the same time, it does occur. It's unfortunate. I kind of wonder if it was a starving cougar and it decided to, commit cannibalism, or possibly it was an overly aggressive male, but we don't know, who it was. Okay, well, let me know what your thoughts are on F-66's migration across Utah, Wyoming, and Colorado in the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. And also watch out for those pumas on the highways. Now let's move on to the next article by Sign News. Paleontologists find new biomarkers to identify megafauna species in Australia's fossil record. Okay, here we go. Finally, Australia megafauna. Paleontologists have identified peptide markers for three species of extinct Australian megafauna: a hippo-sized wombat, a giant kangaroo, and a marsupial. Oh, yes, with enormous claws opening the way for research, which could help us understand how a series of unexplained extinctions of megafauna 50,000 years ago happened, and if humans were responsible. Um, So, yeah, it is interesting how the megafauna, for the most part, not all of them, but many of the species within Australia ended up dying about 30, what was it, 30? I think it ranges, but let's say 50,000 years ago, about, what would it be? For about 40,000 years. Am I saying that right? 40, 30, 20. Yeah. I mean, 40,000 years before most of the other megafauna and other continents died out. So here we have a giant wombat and some prehistoric cockatoo. Not familiar with prehistoric cockatoos. Polarchestis azile is this um no. The geographic range and extinction date of megafauna in Australia and potential interaction with early modern humans is a hotly debated topic, said University of Vienna's Professor Katerina Duca. The low number of fossils that have been found at paleontological sites across the country means that it is difficult to test hypotheses about why these animals became extinct, added University of Algarve's Dr. Carly Peters. Zoo archaeology by mass spectrometry could increase the number of identified megafauna fossils, but only if collagen peptide markers for these species are available. Yeah, so when referring to the wombats back then during the Pleistocene, especially like over a million years ago in Australia, these animals could reach over 2,000 pounds, some cases much larger, depending on the wombat species. There were certain wombats that were ranged between like the 500 to 800-pound range. So some were around like, mainland brown bear size, which is still not a small wombat. The largest today doesn't reach much more than 85 pounds. But back then, they were not burrowers. And they also had to deal with different predators within the region, especially dingoes had not arrived on Australia yet. They wouldn't until around 3,500 years ago. You also had it where there were large predecessors to animals like the Tasmanian devil, and also even kangaroos at this time were much larger. Same thing for the giant. Who's another example? Possibly like the giant wallabies during this time, and there were also like the giant birds such as the moa, which actually, though, they went extinct relatively recently, like the past few hundred years. Let's see. Because collagen preserves better than DNA, this method can be applied successfully in tropical and subtropical environments where DNA is unlikely to survive. But most reference markers are for Eurasian species that never lived in other parts of the world. This research develops new reference markers for an Australian context, allowing scientists to glean more information from Australia's fragmented fossil record. Proteins generally preserve better over longer timescales and in harsh environments than DNA does, Dr. Peter says. This means that in context of megafauna extinctions, proteins may still be preserved where DNA is not. The researchers chose to study three species. Okay, here we go, which could be particularly valuable for understanding megafauna extinctions. Zygomaturus trilobus, Palor azile. So there's the wombat. Protmenodon memcura. Protmemnod, Protomemnodon is probably the kangaroo. Zygomatarus It's not hitting me who that could be. Oh, okay. Um, well, does it say for him then? No, I just clicked on that. Oh, okay. It's another wombat. Zygomaturus. Okay, let's go back. So Zygomaturus trilobus and Palorchestes azyle are from families of animals that went completely extinct during the late Quaternary, late Pleistocene epoch, so around 50,000 years ago. While Protemnodon memcura survived long enough that it could potentially have overlapped with humans arriving in Tasmania. Huh. Okay, so for uh, maybe 20 more thousand years. The scientists previously dated the fossilized bones of the species to beyond 43,000 years ago. Actually, no, no, no. It wouldn't be maybe over 40,000 years. Zygomaturus trilobus was one of the largest marsupials that ever existed. It would have looked like a wombat the size of a hippo, Professor Duca said. I'm guessing she's referring to a hippopotamus, not a pygmy hippo. Completely different things. You cannot call a pygmy hippo a hippopotamus. It's a completely different species. And pygmy hippos don't usually reach much more than 6 to 700 pounds. So they're much smaller than the 3,000 pound hippo. Protemnodon mancura was a giant, slow moving kangaroo, potentially walking on all fours at times. Palorchestes azyle was an unusual looking marsupial that possessed a skull with highly retracted nasals and a long, protrusible tongue, strong forelimbs, and enormous claws. If the early modern humans who entered Sahul, the paleocontinent that connected present day Australia, New Guinea, and Tasmania 55,000 years ago, came across them, they would have certainly got a big surprise. I guess I'm confusing it with another human migration. I thought the Aborigines arrived in Australia much later. Okay, well, I was wrong on that. The authors ruled out any contaminants and compared the peptide markers they found to reference markers. The collagen in all three samples was well preserved enough for the team to identify suitable peptide markers for all three species. No, this is good. Using these markers, the paleontologists were able to differentiate Protemnodon from five living genera and one extinct genus of kangaroos. Huh. This is interesting. They were also able to distinguish Zygomaturus. Well, it's just differentiating the five different. Um, oh, wait a second. Oh, I can wait. Five different living genres. So five living genuses of macropodontomorphs of today. So, um, though it's not stating whether or not like specific species of kangaroos, just the genre in general. So that's not too specific. And one extinct genus of kangaroo. So I guess it's relating to another genus of kangaroo, aside from Protemnodon. Especially, there's the more famous Pro Procoptodon that existed within Australia around 80,000 years ago. This kangaroo was somewhere around 7.5 feet in height and could probably have reached somewhere around 4 to 500 pounds. They were also able to distinguish Zygomaturus and Palorchestis from other living and extinct marsupials. So these are the two extinct species of large wombat, and I'm guessing that they're comparing them with modern day wombats, maybe the northern hairy-nosed wombat or the bare-nosed wombat. Um, let's see, who else would they be comparing them with? Maybe koalas, since they are related. I'm not sure, but I would think at least the wombats today. But they couldn't differentiate the two species from each other. Interesting. Wait a second. These are the two genre, but they were specific on the species further up. This is not unusual with zoo MS, since challenges in collagen accumulate extremely slowly over millions of years of evolution. Unless further research allows for more specificity, these markers are best used to identify bones at the genus level rather than the species. Well, I mean, that helps with being able to differentiate them at the genus. That the genus is extremely important to know, but it's just extremely helpful when it's the species. But it's okay. However, the ability to tell apart genre from more temperate regions of Sahul does present an opportunity to try to identify bones found in more tropical areas. Don't know where Sahul is in Australia. Where closely related species, which are likely to have similar or even the same peptide markers, would have lived. DNA rarely preserves over time in these regions. By using the newly developed collagen peptide markers, we can begin identifying a larger number of megafauna remains in Australian paleontological assemblages, Dr. Peters said. However, there are a lot more species for which collagen peptide markers still need to be characterized. Okay. So, yeah, when it comes to the different carnivores during this time. More famous individual is the marsupial lion, which was not a lion. This was actually a marsupial that had possibly a more leopard-like hunting lifestyle, so possibly waiting up in the trees. And for like a just unsuspecting giant kangaroo or possibly a smaller wombat individual to pounce on. It's known as at least the genus Thylaccoleo and could probably weigh somewhere between 3 to 400 pounds. And it actually survived until relatively recently. Possibly the Thylaccoleo went extinct somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000 years ago, right at the time as the dingo arrived. I don't think that the dingo outcompeted the Thylaccoleo. Um, Definitely, Thylacoleo would easily overpower a 35-pound canid. Even a pack would really probably not mess with this animal. But around this time, most of the large animals had disappeared from mainland Australia. And it's possible that this animal was just too big for the smaller, more agile, red kangaroos that now inhabit the region, which are smaller than the Thylacoleo itself. So it probably just simply couldn't adapt and died out. Um, Two examples would be Diprotodon. So Diprotodon was one of the largest wombats to exist. So this is over the 2,500-pound range. The largest marsupial genus to have ever existed, and Thylacoleo, the largest marsupial predator. Okay, well, this is good to know that they got this deep insight on these different genre of the wombats and kangaroos within the region. It's too bad we didn't see anything about Thylacoleo in this instance, or like mention anything more in depth about Diprotodon. Well, let me know what your thoughts are on the Australian megafauna in the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article by The Guardian. Carnivorous marsupials, cryptic birds, and feral cats. Wildlife cameras capture life on a Queensland cattle station. The monitoring program by Australian Wildlife Conservancy aims to show conservation and cattle grazing can coexist if properly managed. Yay! So, looks like we've got we've got a group of greater bilbies. So these are member of the um, Dinosauridae lineage of um, marsupials. So these are all related to the bandicoots in the region. Um, these omnivores don't usually reach, at least when it comes to the males, much more than 5 to 7 pounds, and the females are much smaller. They're around the 3 pound range, and they feed on a variety of insects, fungi, spiders in the region. It's also to remember that spiders are not insects, they're arachnids. And arachnidia is a huge group of terrestrial animals. So, your greater bilbies, they also tend to be quite nocturnal and they're also burrowers. and their large ears are to help release heat in the arid region that they live in Australia. So it's kind of like the fennec foxes over in the Sahara Desert and their enlarged ears. Frame by frame, the wildlife living on a Queensland cattle station are revealed. A long eared bilby is caught mid hop on a gibber plain, the name given to the densely packed rocks of the desert pavement. The eyes of an endangered kawari. The kawari is a member of the uh, pe- Pelagiliomorpha family of marsupials. They are much smaller than the greater bilby. They don't usually reach much more than like 7 ounces, and they, however, are much more um, carnivorous, at least towards smaller mammals within the region. There's the long-tailed rat in Australia, which is native to the continent. So there are native species of rodents, despite Australia just simply being renowned for their marsupials. There are native species of placentals. So these rats do not have a pouch like the wallabies, bilbies, or koaris do in this case. Um, Also, the greater bilby and the koaris, they're a bit distantly related to animals such as the kangaroos. Okay, a palm-sized carnivorous marsupial with a bottle-brush tail, glow and eerie white. Oh, I think it's just relating to the tail itself. A feral cat stalks past, and a curious dingo eyeballs the trail camera. One of 8 planted on a North Australian pastoral company. NAPCO property in the Channel Country as part of a joint biodiversity project with Australian Wildlife Conservancy. NAPCO, which manages a 6-meter hectare cattle estate across northern, oh, wait, not meter, million, right? Maybe. Sheesh. Across northern Australia, first invited AWC ecologists to undertake an ecological assessment on its Western Queensland properties in 2020. The ecologists recorded 51 bird species, 10 reptile, 7 mammal, and 6 types of frog. But we don't know how large of an area this is, and like, what's it called? Oh, wait, is it the just simply the North? No, because we're not sure specifically where this is taking place outside of Western Queensland. And well, technically you could say this is Eastern Australia, more in the northern region slightly. Okay, well, there is an abundance of um just animals here, just not so much the mammals. Okay, here we have a kawari. So this is the little 7-ounce predator. They will also hunt after another species of the invasive Eurasian mouse within the region. Those Eurasian mice are a big problem over in Australia, just wreaking havoc to hay production, livestock feed, as well as even native vegetation that the native marsupials and rodents in the different regions rely on. So this guy helps out with the management slightly. So this was taken on a Napco cattle station. This picture. So yes, this is next to his burrow. That spawned a 2-year pilot project involving the deployment of 8 remote monitoring stations with motion detection cameras and solar powered bioacoustic recorders, which collect data 24 hours a day. The project hoped to find 3 target species: the greater bilby, kawari, and plains wanderer. Plains wanderer. It's not hitting me who that is. Greater bilby numbers are estimated to be fewer than 10,000. Oh, I didn't realize they were that low. Sheesh, that's not good. I thought they were much more common. Greater bilbies tend to be found in the northwestern part of Australia, and there's a small population in like the central part of the continent. I think somewhere in the Northern Territory. It's interesting that they're over this population over in Queensland. The quarry also has an estimated population of fewer than 10,000. That's not good either. With the conservation status ranging from vulnerable in Queensland and endangered in South Australia to extinct in the Northern Territory. There are estimated to be as few as 250 critically endangered plains wanderers. Wait, who are you? Click on. Oh, so that bird. Dang it. The elusive ground dwelling birds. Okay, yeah, I am concerned about it, but I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't be as much if it weren't for these two. So yes, stick it on the list. That's not good. Across the country, the camera footage was analyzed through AWC's AI and wildlife recognition technology, overseen by Dr. Alexander Watson, a regional ecologist. Quarry were photographed at each site, which Watson says is a great indication that the population is widespread and doing relatively well. The greater bilby was photographed at two sites, and the plains wander at none. Though Watson is confident bioacoustic recordings, which are yet to be analyzed by new technology being developed at the Queensland University of Technology, will reveal the bird's presence. Hey, here's another bilby. The cameras are set up for mammals, but the bioacoustics are designed for bird calls, Watson says. The plains wanderers, so the ground dwelling birds, are very cryptic birds, and we would be extremely lucky for one to walk in front of a camera, but they have been sighted on a neighboring property, and I have no reason to believe that they are not here. While bioacoustics are being fine tuned, motion cameras have long played a part in ecological surveys, picking up sightings of everything from the rare night parrot. Okay, who is this guy? Oh, one of these green individuals. Okay, that's good to see. I don't know very much about it. Just recognize the color. To the occasional naked human. Okay. Maybe it's an aborigine. On the Napco property, alongside the Kawari and Bilby cameras, collected images of other vulnerable species, including letterwing kites and black falcons. So a kite is a species of bird in the region. Yes, both of these are native to Australia. The camera monitoring program is part of nationwide wildlife survey work by the organization, which included a sighting of Australia's rarest raptor, the red goshawk, at the AWC's New Haven sanctuary last month, the first time the bird had been seen in Central Australia for 30 years. Well, that's good to hear that they're back. The goshawk. So this is at the New Haven Wildlife Sanctuary in the Northern Territory. So Central Australia. The pilot project, funded by the Queensland government's Threatened Species Research Grants, was used to help refine the use of AI recognition software for both visual and aural diagnostics. Um, Additional 60 monitoring sites have already been deployed across NAPCO stations. So let's see where the predators fall in, especially the invasive ones like cats, dogs, mice, you could even say. Sheesh, rats, foxes. It's really bad. The monitoring cameras also track the presence of feral cats, the biggest threat to ground dwelling native species and nesting birds. Feral cats were detected at half of the NAPCO camera sites, and Watson says ecologists were alarmed by the number of feral cats seen resting in raptor nests along creek lines. Yeah, that's the problem with cats. They just once they find a bird nest, they can't help it. They just immediately eat all the eggs and or chicks, whatever's there, and they will even use their nest as a resting spot. So this can explain why many of these birds are having a very tough time. Now, you can have in different parts of North America where different species, more ground dwelling birds, will have a problem with certain populations of, or you could say, overpopulated areas of raccoons, and they will decimate, especially in areas where They'll decimate turkey populations, especially when it comes to their nests. They'll decimate grouse populations. Um, see who else. There's a variety of other ground-dwelling birds, but especially the turkeys and grouse. And it's also in areas where there isn't native habitat and it's exotic grass. And the turkeys and grouse have a really tough time making a suitable nest in those areas, and it's harder on the chicks to move around. But the raccoons take advantage of it. Wonder if it's similar with the cats and the native birds and also marsupials within these regions. Okay, well, on the bright side, here's a Kuwari. Oh, also the family in which this animal belongs to. There's around 71 distinct species that belong to at least the order of this animal. And that's including the Tasmanian devil. So it is a relative of the 15-pound Tasmanian devil over on the island of Tasmania. Tasmanian devils used to inhabit all of Australia until around the time the marsupial lion went extinct and when the dingo arrived, which is interesting. All of a sudden, 3,500 years ago, they just remained restricted to Tasmania and I believe another island adjacent to Tasmania, which is technically in the southeastern region of mainland Australia. Monitoring stations were placed both in nature reserves and in cattle paddocks across the station. Watson says the presence of native species alongside livestock suggests the two may be able to coexist if the land is managed correctly. Oh yeah, I mean I'm not surprised by this. There are many incidents where, especially in North America, that as long as you're constantly rotating the cattle, they can actually benefit the ecosystem and they don't have really a negative impact in the area. If you let them graze for too long and just simply just um, let them munch on the grass until there's nothing, then of course you're going to have a big problem. That's something you don't really have to worry about with bison is that they always keep moving. Once it reaches a certain height, they usually just don't tend to stay in a specific area for very long. And what I mean by that is like maybe a couple of days and they move on. So we are at the beginning of understanding the dynamics between cattle and conservation, and this is important work in exploring how we can best work with pastoralists, he says. This has also been seen with different sheep herds among Australia, and properly rotated ones have actually helped benefit and even bring back different native grassland communities or different grassland. What I meant by community was a large group of different native species of grass in these different ecoregions or ecosystems within Australia, especially in the more central regions, even the semi-arid regions. So a lot of people tend to think of Australia, especially the central areas, as nothing but just a red desert. And the truth is, a lot of these areas where you just tend to see a red desert, it's because it's been overgrazed and there hasn't been proper um, just rotations of the beef cow herds or the sheep herds. And when there is, it tends to bring the grass back. The cameras also detected multiple dingoes across the Mitchell Grass Downs and Gibber Plains. Well, this is good to hear. I mean, we have the dingoes in the region, which also help deplete the different invasive animals in the region, especially the foxes and the cats. The animal's natural curiosity, making for up close and personal shots. Also, a lot of the time, you can have it to where the dingoes or canids in general can be a better defense against things like rats or mice than the cats. Um, Managing the coexistence of dingoes with livestock is a trickier challenge, but with many pastoralists still harboring a deep animosity to the native dogs. But it is a possibility being explored by AWC and NAPCO. Yeah, there are some instances where the dingoes will actually be preying on much more the invasive species and the native species of marsupials as opposed to livestock. I'd say they're one of the canids that tend to prey much less on livestock compared to others. Certain subpopulations of gray wolf can be a big livestock problem for livestock as opposed to others. But looking at the dingo, this tends to be less of a problem with them. So yeah, here's the Plains Wonder. NAPCO's chief executive, Alan Cooney, says the project is an opportunity to quantify the benefits of responsible pastoral management with meaningful conservation efforts. The company manages about 200,000 head of cattle and has dedicated 385,000 hectares as nature reserve. Well, that's a lot of land. I mean, that's nice. I guess especially for these endangered marsupials in the region, even the bird. Well, actually, probably the 51 species of bird within the certain region. I guess if this is relating to this specific reserve, yeah, it's going to help. Our partnership with AWC allows us to deepen our understanding of the native and endangered species across our expansive state, he says. The data collected through this collaboration is invaluable for guiding sustainable practices that safeguard both wildlife and the resilience of these unique ecosystems. Okay, with about 44% of Australia covered by pastoral land, collaboration is key to significantly scaling up conservation across the country and for securing the future of Australia's threatened wildlife. Huh, I thought it was more than 44%. Well, okay, I guess if you think about it, that's actually a decent amount of land in Australia. Is this it? Okay. Well, in the end, so let me know what your comments are. Well, I mean, I think this is good with what we're seeing with the different birds, the quarries in the region, the greater bilbies. Um, though it's unfortunate that this area is not very diverse in. Well, let me phrase that. It doesn't have a lot of variety in marsupials in general. I think there were like 7 species here, which is kind of unfortunate. I wonder if there are any species that originally were here and you can only find them in certain areas out of the reserve, outside of it. Well, let me know what your thoughts are on the at least the marsupials within the region in the comments. And thank you for watching Creature Guy Live. Now let's move on to the next article by discoverwildlife.com. Giant creature pulled from ancient sinkhole in Appalachian Mountains. So this is over in some part of the eastern lower 48. I think technically you could say that the Appalachian Mountains goes up into part of southeastern Quebec of Canada. The remains of the extinct animal, which lived alongside prehistoric rhinoceros and mastodons, are almost 5 million years old, said scientists. So this is taking place during the mid-Pliocene, around Pliocene epoch, around 5 million years ago. So this, despite it mentioning rhinoceros and mastodons, this is before a variety of different genre and species of rhino and mastodon that occurred during the Pleistocene. Um, Most people are familiar with like a million years ago. So this is before animals like the American mastodon, then the Yukon or Siberian woolly rhino would evolve. So these are completely different genre. Um, oh, okay, let's just picture the forest. Researchers have found the 4.9 million year old remains of a giant flying squirrel, Myopterista webi, at the Grave Fossil Site and Museum in Northeast Tennessee. I had a feeling that the title was going to mention something a lot smaller, but he's still cool. Grave fossil site. An ancient pond that formed within a sinkhole has yielded many discoveries since it was unearthed in 2000 during the construction on Tennessee State Route 75, including new species of red panda, rhinoceros, pond turtle, and hickory tree, as well as the world's largest known collection of tapir fossils. Yes, so we did have tapir during the Pliocene epoch in North America. Um, Something happened in recent times, and now they've been restricted to different parts of South America, especially in the marshes, rainforests. But they're also present in different parts of Southeast Asia, with the like the Malaysian tapir. It tends to have a black and white sort of coloration. Um, the researchers who published the latest discovery in the Journal of Mammalian Evolution say that finding Myopetorista in North America was quite unexpected, as this genus is only known from Eurasia. Well, this is interesting. This has happened with um, even different species of dinosaur, not just mammal, where despite a certain genus being found in one continent, and then all of a sudden it turns out that they were found in another. This usually has to do with some sort of a land bridge occurring at some period in time when that happens. Was quite unexpected. Oh, okay. There had been some uncertain reports from Florida, says Dr. Isaac Casanovas Villar from the Instituto Català de Paleontología in Spain, but the specimen of the gray fossil site provided new information and helped to confirm that somehow these giant flying squirrels crossed the Bering Land Bridge alongside other mammals about 5 million years ago. Yeah, it is quite remarkable to think that these giant flying squirrels were crossing the Bering Land Bridge from Russia to Alaska. So there was a constant change with the Bering Land Bridge. You could have had some instances where, for a period of time, like it's in the thousands of years, the land bridge existed and then it disappeared and then it came back. So it was a constant back and forth alongside other mammals about 5 million years ago. According to the study, the new specimen may represent the oldest record of the Myopetorista genus in North America. Although these ancient gliders may seem similar to the squirrels seen in the Appalachian woodlands today, their closest relatives are actually the giant flying squirrels of Japan, China, and Indonesia. That is interesting. Hmm. It's almost like they died out here, yet their closest relatives are still inhabiting East Asia. Weighing around 1.4 kilograms or 3 pounds. That's roughly 3 times as heavy as a gray squirrel. Uh, it's I don't know. I've seen some big gray squirrels. We might need to double check on that. Um, but anyway, it's a decent size flying squirrel. Sciurus carolinensis. 3 pounds. Yeah, that's a pretty heavy squirrel. Anyway, they were lightweight for their size, yet agile, perfectly adapted to life in the treetops. So we don't know what possibly how long the wingspan would be for this animal or the length from head to tail. That would be interesting to know. When they first arrived in what is now Tennessee, the climate was much warmer than today, creating ideal conditions for their ancestors to spread into North America. They likely thrived in the dense, humid forests that once covered the region, much like the ancient woodland preserved at the Gray fossil site. But as the Ice Ages took hold, or the Pleistocene epoch, this is probably around 2 million years ago. But I would think if this genus, and specifically whatever the species is, of what's your name? Oh, no, that's the gray squirrel. I need to scroll up. Myo Myopectorista would just possibly have been already extinct by the time the Pleistocene arrived, but maybe not, and it had trouble adapting to the new change in the climate and even the ecology of Eastern North America. But as the ice ages took hold, dramatic environmental changes reshaped the landscape. explains Montserrat Grau-Kamatz. As the climate cooled over time, the Pleistocene ice ages led to the isolation of these giant flying squirrels in warmer refuges like Florida, and ultimately contributed to their extinction, says Grau-Kamatz. It was much warmer in Florida than what many people tend to assume. During the Ice Age or Pleistocene, there were a variety of different types of wetlands and marshes that would have hosted larger mammals that were suited for technically still a subtropical climate. It would just probably be a bit cooler than what you find today in Florida. You would have had giant armadillos like the glyptodonts within the region, and that could weigh, somewhere around 1 to 2 tons. You Glyptodont is part of the family in which even modern day armadillos belong to. So, whereas the largest armadillo today can reach somewhere around 130 pounds, the glyptodonts range from 11 pounds to around 2 tons. They also thrived throughout North America and South America. They were mostly, or at least the glyptodonts so far, the larger species tend to be quite herbivorous. So they were probably feeding on a variety of different aquatic vegetations and possibly being slightly grazers. They probably weren't feeding on any insects, flesh, might have gone after fungi, but um, definitely herbivorous. So also unlike today, they tend to have it looks like they had a very maneuverable tapir-like trunk. Um, but it is interesting that Myopaturista could not survive this change. The last American Myopaturista lived millions of years after all Eurasian species of this genus had disappeared, meaning at the time they were living fossils. Well, that's a good illustration. Yeah, flying squirrels tend to have long tails and kind of like other larger species of squirrels. I mean, you start looking at certain species of ground squirrels or chipmunks. Chipmunks are squirrels. Prairie dogs are ground squirrels. Um, Many just tend to assume that their own thing in the rodent family. So, but they are actually just squirrels. Managed by the Don Sundquist Center of Excellence in Paleontology at East Tennessee State University, the Gray Fossil Site continues to transform our understanding of Appalachia's prehistoric past, says the researchers. The fossil found here, including that of the giant flying squirrel, are those of the ancient plants and animals that lived and died in and around the sinkhole. Oh, that didn't hit me. This animal probably had a bit of a miserable death because it got trapped by the sinkhole, probably going for water and died. Or maybe it was trying to just roll around some mud to keep the mosquitoes off. At least that's another guess. That's unfortunate. The discovery of this giant flying squirrel adds to an impressive list of finds, including the formidable bone crushing dog. Probably, I'm guessing, some genus related to Epicyon, which was one of the early predecessors to modern day canids, but even other genre and species of canids over in the Pleistocene or Ice Age. It is amazing to imagine these giant flying squirrels gliding over rhinos and mastodons living in the forests of Tennessee 5 million years ago, says Dr. Joshua Samuels. This really points to the potential of the gray fossil site to keep pursuing us after 25 years. Okay, well, let me know what your thoughts are on the Mypoturista giant ground squirrel in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next article by NBC.com. The Americas captured the high altitude, high stakes lives of spectacled bears. Okay, sounds good. Filmmakers spent 5 years and 180 expeditions capturing the footage that would become the Americas along the way. They captured animal behaviors and incredible interactions never before caught on film, working in collaboration with scientists and researchers and using cutting-edge technologies. The crew behind the Americas captured incredible footage of wandering salamanders leaping from the tops of California redwood trees. Okay. Sperm whales hunting squid on the seafloor, and spectacled bears descending the sheer cliffs of the Ecuadorian mountains. Researcher Irene Mendez Cruz and team traveled to the jagged mountain forests of Ecuador in search of the spectacled bear, the only species of bear in South America. In fact, they were looking for a specific bear and her new cubs. Okay, so when it talks about the um, spectacled bear within the region, they tend to be found in the more high altitude regions of different parts of Colombia, Ecuador, Bolivia, Chile, and they don't range down to Argentina. Possibly part of Western Brazil. They are actually a very close relative of the extinct short-faced bear lineage, such as Arctodecimus back in Pleistocene North America or during the Ice Age. The South American short-faced bear. Spectacled bears, they don't usually reach much more than around 380 pounds. They're quite omnivorous. They tend to feed on a variety of different species of insects, especially going after ants, and they will also feed on fruit. Um, and they will also go after deer within these higher elevations. So they tend to exist somewhere between 8,000 to 15,000 feet above sea level. They spent days hiking up and down forest paths searching for one particular bear in seamless, endless mountain forest. The reasons why we came at this time of the year is because we've been following a bear called Sylvestra. She's a very experienced mama bear, Cruz says, in the making of the Americas. She should be coming out of her nest with her really young cubs, but she's nowhere to be found. Spectacled bears spend the first time. Okay. Filmmakers use drones to document the journey from a safe distance. Hopefully, it wasn't too close to the animals so it didn't spook them, because that happens a lot of the time with brown bears. But also, sometimes the brown bears will face off to the cameras. Polar bears will hunt down the drones. It was a little like shooting stunt shots in enchanted forest, except there's only one take, and if the bears make a mistake, it curtains. This looks like one of the yearling cubs going up to the guy. Hmm. To narrow the search, the crew deployed camera-equipped drones capable of flitting around the forest like mechanical hummingbirds. Even with all that technology, it didn't prevent bears from sneaking up on the crew. I was shocked that I guess they were completely okay with the drones. That's interesting. A lot of the time tends to spook the animals. Um, oh, okay. Well, no, I was just it's just so much about like the experience of the crew. I was just wondering if they found anything about the bears. Yeah, they can be arboreal as well, not to the same extent as like certain sun bears in different parts of Southeast Asia. Um, the s- oh, arboreal. When it refers to this lifestyle, it means that they like being up in the trees, like koalas, and also koalas are not bears, despite them being also called drop bears. They're marsupials. So this is a spectacled bear sleeping in the branches of a higuaran tree in Ecuador, Mirador del Oso. Oh, jeez. Okay. We all held our breath and we were just on the edge of our seat, wondering what was going to happen, Cruz said. Fortunately for the bears, for the crews, and the viewers at home, the bear cubs made the descent safely and arrived in apparently enchanted fruit-filled forest. Is that it? Oh, well, okay. Well, it's good to hear that they came upon some spectacled bears. There's not very many. They're actually quite endangered. There could be somewhere between 4 to 8,000 spectacled bears left throughout these different countries. So their populations are quite fragmented. They're not talked about as much as in some cases, like even the Asiatic black bears or sun bears. Um, but yeah, they're about as in critical state as sun bears, and some cases, even the Asiatic black bear sun bears. There might be somewhere between 4 to 8,000 individuals as well. Asiatic black bears could be somewhere between 5 to 10,000 animals. So the spectacled bear, though, is much larger than the sun bear or the Asiatic black bear. It's also much more distantly related to any of the other bears today. Okay, technically, you could say that the most endangered bear is the panda. I actually thought for a while that they were massively increased, had massively increased in population. I thought maybe there was 5 to 6,000 of them. Turns out there could be still less than 2,000 pandas. So their population has risen since the early 2000s. I think there were somewhere around 600 back like before 2010. So they have risen. They just have a very slow reproductive rate. Pandas will only take care of one cub. So let me know what your thoughts are on the spectacled bears in Ecuador in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guy Live. Now let's move on to a article by Sign News. New species of Cambrian radiodont unveiled from Canada's Burgess Shale. Mosura fentoni lived in what is now Canada during the Cambrian period, approximately 506 million years ago. So this is towards the very end of the Cambrian, around, um, around the towards the last 6 million years. So this is referring to one of the top predators of the Cambrian oceans. Now, this is not a very large creature. This is related to the Anomalocaris, which was also a radiodont from the Cambrian period. Many of these carnivores would feed on the variety of different species of trilobites that inhabited the ocean floors, as well as the different species of what were those things? Like sponge worms that inhabited the region. A very distinct sort of look than what you find in different species of worms on land today. But I guess you could say a bit more similar to possibly worms that today walrus feed on over in the Arctic. So what's another thing? They were probably also feeding on some of the first fish that would have occurred back in the Cambrian, very distinct from later fish. And some cases, the species wasn't much larger than your fingernail. Um, and there were also these um, multi multi-limbed, like sort of worm-like creatures that walked along the ocean floor with the trilobites. Mosera fentoni was about the size of your index finger. Okay, this is not one of the impressive radiodonts in terms of size, but it has a very similar structure to an Amylocarlus. An Amylocarlus was far larger, like over somewhere around a foot in length, and had 3 eyes, spiny jointed claws, and a circular mouth lined with teeth and a body with swimming flaps along its sides. Those traits show it to be part of Radiodonta, a group of the earliest diverging arthropods that also included the famous Anima, Animalocarlus, no, Animalocarlus canadensis. I wonder why they use canadensis. There's a variety of different species of animals with the canadensis in their name as their species. A 1 meter long predator that shared the waters with Mosura fentoni. Okay, so this might be relating to a larger species of Anemalocaris. I was thinking of smaller species. So 1 meter is around a little more, it's around 3.3 feet. However, the new species also possessed a feature not seen in any other radiodont. an abdomen-like body region made up of multiple segments at its back end. Mosura fentoni has 16 tightly packed segments lined with gills at the rear end of its body. So lungs had not evolved yet in organisms. They wouldn't evolve until the Devonian, somewhere around 375 million years ago. Said Dr. Joe Mosuik, curator of paleontology and geology at the Manitoba Museum and a researcher at Royal Ontario Museum. This is a neat example of evolutionary convergence with modern groups like horseshoe crabs, woodlice, and insects, which share a batch of segments bearing respiratory organs at the rear of the body. Radiodonts were the first group of arthropods to branch out in the evolutionary tree, so they provide key insight into ancestral traits for the entire group. So Dr. Jean Bernard Karen, Richard M. Ivy. The new species emphasizes that these early arthropods were already surprisingly diverse and were adapting in a comparable way to their distant modern relatives. Whoa, okay. I'm guessing this is possibly the Anomalocaris over here. See if there's a diagram beneath. Whoa, there's a variety of different specimens. This is good to see. There's more. Okay. General view of Mosura Fentoni's morphology. Thought I was looking at different specimens. It's just a close up of the different parts of this enamel radiodont. Wow. Okay. So where's his overall view? I'm guessing it's possibly this on H. I don't know. Hmm. Too bad it doesn't give you like the different labels of what's what of the fossil. 60 specimens. Wow. Okay, that's good. Of Mosura fentoni were collected over the course of 9 field seasons between 1990 and 2022 from the Burgess Shale Formation in British Columbia, Canada, specifically the Raymond Quarry in Yoho National Park, and various localities around Marble Canyon and Tokum Creek and Kootenay National Park. I don't know where these national parks over are in Canada, but I am familiar with the Burgess Shale Formation. So this is late Cambrian, and there have been a variety of different species of trilobite that have been discovered here as well. Trilobites, many of them are seen as like just simply the scavengers of the Paleozoic era seas. So from like 545 million years ago to around 250 million years ago, and some might have been herbivorous, so feeding on the abundance of different aquatic vegetation. Land-based vegetation has not evolved yet. So it's pretty much there aren't really any organisms on land. The specimens show details of internal anatomy, including elements of the nervous system, circulatory system, and digestive tract. Oh, well, that's good. Very few fossil sites in the world offer this level of insight into soft internal anatomy, Dr. Karen said. We can see traces representing bundles of nerves in the eyes that would have been involved in image processing, just like in living arthropods. The details are astounding. Instead of having arteries and veins like we do, Mosura fentoni had an open circulatory system, with its heart pumping blood into large internal body cavities called lacunae. These lacunae are preserved as reflective patches that fill the body and extend into the swimming flaps of the fossils. So, yes, all these animals were explicitly, especially when it comes to breathing. I think I already mentioned this, but yeah, they all relied primarily on gills. The well preserved lacunae of the circulatory system in Masura fentoni helped us to interpret similar but less clear features that we've seen before in other fossils. Their identity has been controversial, Dr. Masoik said. Um, Guessing it's what they mean by like what's been debated on like whatever's identity is either the lacunae or Masura itself, like where it belongs within the Radiodontomorph lineage. So I'm just wondering what that's relating to. It turns out that preservation of these structures is widespread, confirming the ancient origin of this type of circulatory system. The discovery, oh, okay. Well, I mean, when it comes to the Cambrian period, I like the radiodontomorphs. I think they're a very interesting carnivore or large group of carnivores that existed during this time period. Um, Especially with the larger ones like Carlos, but I like, what was he? Mosura here too. He's very interesting. They're quite unique. Um, Also, when it comes to their eye sockets and like how they would see, it was probably somewhat similar to a fly. So they would have hundreds, if not thousands, of different microscopic lenses on um, on their eyes, and that's how they would be able to see. So it's quite similar to a variety of different arthropods today, despite them being um, quite distantly related to them. Let me know what your thoughts are on these radiodontomorphs in the comments, and thank you for watching Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the next one by outdoors.com. Rare sighting. Gamekeeper spots 4 elusive snow leopards. Now that is not common. Despite how often it's been shown lately with footage and like, pictures of snow leopards, and you constantly hear that they're elusive, and um, all of a sudden, you're not really viewing them as elusive anymore. The thing is, snow leopards are truly very hard to spot on your own. In many cases, most of these sightings are only due to cameras being installed in different places. Even the locals in different parts of the Himalayas of India, southern China, Nepal, Pakistan, even over into different parts of Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Mongolia, snow leopards are really hard to come upon. So they really do try to stay away from humans. And um, like, that's why in many instances to get footage, filmmakers have had to stay out in these different regions for, like, 2 years until they finally get, some decent footage of snow leopards, at least hunting yak or, certain mark or goats in different regions. But spotting 4, yeah, this is quite rare. It's good to hear because they're also extremely rare. There could be, like, 8 to 10,000 snow leopards left, and many estimates in different countries are, um they're based off of very few individuals. I'm talking less than 100, and, so it's a big question in population in different regions. When Sakuwat Ali spotted 4 snow leopards from the roof of his home near central Karakoram National Park in northern Pakistan. So I'm guessing this is adjacent to the Himalayas. He knew he was seeing something extremely rare. While people in the remote community of Hushi are familiar with these elusive predators, Ali told CNN that when he asked the elders in his community, no one had ever seen 4 of them at the same time. Um, yeah, also, snow leopards are a bit challenging to track because they're usually found above 11,000 feet above sea level. I mean, you can find them in lower elevations, but they tend to inhabit like the 11,000 to 18,000 foot realm. Ali is a gamekeeper in the area, according to CNN, and he says he'd spent 2 weeks tracking this group of snow leopards' paw prints in the snow. When he finally spotted the group, it was through binoculars from his very own roof. Ali further explains that the group of 4 consisted of a mother snow leopard and her 3 cubs, and those cubs are yearlings. She's doing a really good job. Um, yeah, the fact that she got 3 to or approaching adulthood, I mean, that's really good. She must have a very plentiful supply of some prey source in the area. That's a bit challenging to guess of what that might be, but she's prevented them from being taken by, wolves, bears, and other snow leopards in the region. This is really good to hear. Even the eagles can be a problem. The snow leopard trust suggests that there could be fewer than 4,000 these leopards at the left in the wild. Oh, now it's that few? That's not good. But she's um yeah, but I think it's just the problem is that because of how few snow leopards have been confirmed in the wild, um that's why I guess in this rate you could put it between the 4,000 to 10,000 range of snow leopards. The species' greatest threats include poaching and habitat destruction due to mining and development. Okay, let's see. Oh, is there a video? Oh, there's video. I thought it was just a picture. Oh, wow, this is really good. Yeah, those are healthy. No! Oh, wait, just coming back. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, wow, this is really good to see. Yeah, I mean, despite how well adapted they are for the mountains, even trekking through that deep snow, especially as they're ascending higher in elevation and trying to track down certain prey items, can it's quite challenging even for them. But on the bright side, puts on a lot of muscle for these animals, but they're very healthy. Um, yeah, is this seems okay? There aren't okay. These are two. It's the same group. I don't know why they're doing this. No, it's just a random picture. Okay. That might be it. Okay. Well, um, it's good to see that there's a mother snow leopard out there and she's raised 3 healthy cubs. So this will help with spreading genetic variety and just helping with also increasing their population, especially over in northern Pakistan. I would think that there's plenty of territory for we don't know what the genders of the children are or kittens, but I would think that in northern Pakistan, especially for how low their population is overall, there would be plenty of territory available for the children to occupy. If she has a male kitten, he's probably going to venture much further away. But now I don't know also whether or not like where in the range of the snow leopard at the moment has the most like where's the highest density of them, but I would just think they might stay in northern Pakistan. Okay. Well, let me know what your thoughts are on the snow leopards in the comments. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's move on to the final article by Sci News. Ancient relatives of salmon and pike live in Alaska's fresh waters 73 million years ago. Interesting. So this was around the late Cretaceous, right before the beginning of the early Maastrichtian period. So this was the later Campanian Cretaceous. So this was in Alaska. You had animals, possibly um, tyrannosaurs like Daspletosaurus and Gorgosaurus, ranging into Alaska. Probably more likely Gorgosaurus, but definitely into different parts of Alberta in southern Canada. But looking at Alaska, you had different species of troodontid at this point and different species of hadrosaurs. Paleontologists have found the fossils of 3 new fish species, including the earliest known salmonoid species, Civilio alaskensis, at the Prince Creek Formation of northern Alaska. Okay, this is one of the more well-known formations, especially from the Lake Cretaceous within Alaska. So this is like northeast of the Brooks Range Mountains of western Alaska. Okay, so here we have a Chinook salmon. So this is a present day salmon of today. You can find this species along different parts of southern Alaska, southeastern Alaska, but even the mainland southern range too, western British Columbia coasts, even over into Washington State, different parts of Oregon. It might even get into different parts of Idaho. Civilisoma alaskensis is not only a new species, it's the oldest salmonoid in the fossil record, said Dr. Patrick Druckenmiller, director of the University of Alaska Museum of the North. Our paper also documents multiple other species of ancient fish new to the Arctic, including new two species of pike, Archaeocilic gulmali and Nunaliculic gracilis, and the oldest record of the group that includes carp and minnows. Why do I have a feeling that they combined some indigenous language of the Americas with Greek and Latin? I'm just looking at the I'm guessing that by the Nunavik. That's gotta be from like some Inuit language. Anyway, many of the fish groups that we think of as being distinctive today in the high altitude and high latitude environment in Alaska were already in place at the same time as dinosaurs. Um, yeah, fish were around before the dinosaurs, if that's what it's trying to make it out like. Anyway, the discovery of Cebulusio alaskensis adds another 20 million years to the fossil history of the salmon family. Previously, the oldest salmonoid documented was in fossils found in British Columbia and Washington. Oh, I think it's referring to like the salmon family itself. So it's good to know that they're over in Alaska. Previous, it's notable that salmonoids, which tend to prefer colder water, were thriving even during the warmth of the Cretaceous, and that they lived for millions of years in regions that have gone through dramatic changes in geography and climate, said Dr. Andres Lopez, a curator at the University of Alaska Museum of the North. Despite it being warmer in the Arctic at that time, there would have still been big seasonal swings in temperature and light, just like they are today. Salmon were already the kind of fish that do well in a place where those dramatic shifts were happening. Despite all the changes that the planet has gone through, all of the changes in the geography and the climate, you still had the ancestors of the same groups of species that dominate the fresh waters of the region today. I haven't done a whole lot of research on the different freshwater fish. Well, okay, technically you could say salmon are a mixture of saltwater and freshwater fish because at first they're inhabiting shallow areas or estuaries of the rivers within the mainland, and or at least when they're fry, and eventually they move out into the open ocean. Or depending on the species, they might spend somewhere between 2 to 7 years out at sea, and then eventually come back to spawn. It might have been pretty similar with different species of salmon back during the late Cretaceous period. The new species are the latest discovery to come from the Prince Creek Formation, which is famous for dinosaur fossils found at a series of sites along the Colville River in northern Alaska. In the Cretaceous, Alaska was much closer to the North Pole than it is today. Fish fossils are one of the most abundant types of fossils at the Prince Creek Formation, but they are very difficult to see and distinguish in the field, said Dr. Drunken Miller. We hauled buckets of fine sand and gravel back to our museum lab, where we used microscopes to find the bones and teeth. Our new findings are primarily based on tiny fossilized jaws, some of which would easily fit on the end of a pencil eraser. Wow. Well, I'm guessing these were smaller salmon specimens or pike that they were discovering. To get a good look at the fossils, the authors used microcomputed tomography to digitally reconstruct the tiny jaws, teeth, and other bones. We found a really distinct jaw and other parts that we recognized as a member of the salmon family, said Dr. Drunken Miller. The presence of salmonoids in the Cretaceous polar regions and the absence of common lower latitude fish from the same time period indicate that the salmon family likely originated in the north. Hmm. Okay, so it looks like they've stayed in the northern regions of the Earth for pretty much their entire evolution. The question is, who came before the salmonoids? Northern high latitude regions were probably the crucible of their crucible uh, of their evolutionary history. Well, this is good to know that we had salmon and or at least just salmonoids in general in Alaska around 73 million years ago. I really do wonder though what came right before them. But it's nice to know that they're up there and not just down in British Columbia. So that's it for let me know what your thoughts are on the salmonoids in the comments. And that's it for the animal news of the day. You can catch our live streams at 6 p.m. Central, Friday through Saturday, Sunday at 3 p.m. And don't forget to miss more of our daily news episodes Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Oh, don't forget to watch our live daily news live streams at 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. And remember to like, comment, and if you love talking about animals, share this show with everyone you know because nothing is better than all animals all the time.